It was such an ugly deed. I want to believe that she never knew what happened.
A brutal killing.
There's never a motive to kill a 16-year-old high school cheerleader.
A dark mystery with multiple suspects.
Did she get kidnapped? Did somebody pick her up on the road?
It's almost as if he was trying to insert himself into the investigation.
He had a reputation of being on the criminal side of the law.
You know those kids know things. You know those kids talk.
The truth will be revealed.
We said, you made all those choices, and you need to pay the price.
Every day in North America, dozens of people are murdered. The key to solving the toughest of these homicides lies in the final 24 hours of the victim's life. To crack the case, detectives must reconstruct that critical timeline. The minutes and hours containing evidence that can help unlock the mystery and catch the killer. The border between Texas and Oklahoma is one of the least populated in America.
Montague County, Texas, and Jefferson County, Oklahoma, are only separated by the Red River. You've got farming communities on both sides, working class for the most part. You really wouldn't know if there wasn't a bridge and a river there that you were crossing a state line.
There was a rancher and his granddaughter who were crossing the bridge. And the rancher looked out into those murky waters. And he saw something floating. And he thought that there was a calf that had fallen dead in the river. Then his granddaughter said, "Grandpa, I believe that's a body."
When police arrive, they find the signs of a violent slaying scattered across the landscape.
The victim had sustained severe trauma, and all of it from the rear. The back, the buttocks, the shoulders, the head. It was consistent with a high-powered shotgun.
They were shot 9 times, which is not normal. That's overkill.
We were able to determine from the autopsy that a particular brand of shotgun shell was used, and it was Winchester.
And the forensic odontologist compared the dental records with the x-rays of the victim, and they matched up perfectly to the missing cheerleader from Waurika.
7 days earlier, Heather Rich had vanished from home 37 miles north in Waurika, Oklahoma.
Heather was a 16-year-old girl that wanted to be popular. She was pretty. Everybody knew her.
Heather was an intelligent girl. She had a good, caring, loving home. Came from a good family, good people. There's never a motive to kill a 16-year-old high school cheerleader.
A joint homicide task force, including Lydia Williams from the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation, Lane Aiken of the Texas Rangers, and Chris Hamilton of the Montague County Sheriff's Office, must now determine how Heather's young life ended.
It's imperative to establish a timeline in a disappearance. You have to come to know the victim. You have to come to know the victim's families. and their acquaintances.
Waurika is this small little town.
They took a lot of pride in their football team. They took a lot of pride in their kids.
Everybody knew everybody else. Everybody knew everybody else's business. It's just a little bitty community that was very close-knit.
It was like any other small town. They were not used to experiencing such a horrific murder. Her parents were shattered by the events that had occurred, and they were exceedingly cooperative with the investigation. Heather Rich was last seen at home on the night of October 2nd. It was a Wednesday night. And based on the evidence that we gained from the medical examiner's office, we believe that Heather had been in the water for about a week.
This suggests Heather was killed within hours of when she was last seen that previous Wednesday.
The night she disappeared, her mom came in and had a $300 phone bill, and she was not a happy camper. The last word she said to her was, "All you do is cost me money." And she's always regretted that.
An hour later, she had already washed her hair. They said it was unusual for her to wash her hair before she went to bed. She normally did that just before she went to school in the mornings.
Heather got ready, supposedly ready for bed. Then we believe she snuck out the window.
The next morning, Heather's parents go to wake her for school.
They went into her room. Her bed was made, and Heather was not in the bed.
Parents' initial reaction was panic.
They even said she'd done it before. She'd sneak out, but then she'd come back. But that didn't happen.
Another family member then recalls an incident that had taken place the previous evening.
She'd taken a phone call, and one of her brothers had, as little brothers will do, I think he was kind of snooping in.
He heard his sister say, "Oh, isn't that sweet?" Little brother asked Heather, "Who are you talking to?" And she said she was talking to Carly, another cheerleader. We were able to go back and look at the call logs, and it showed that that call had come from a payphone. And that was about 10 p.m. that night.
Most people are harmed by people they know.
So our first thought was that whoever made this phone call was likely involved in the murder.
They focus their attention on the woman Heather claimed to have been talking to.
Carly and Heather were best of friends. They worked on the cheerleading squad together. And according to Carly's mother, Carly had been grounded, so she did not have the opportunity on the night of October 2nd to have made a phone call from a payphone.
When they ask Carly who she thinks Heather was speaking to, she gives them two names.
Carly knew that Heather's past boyfriend was Randy Wood. And Carly also knew that Heather's current boyfriend was Josh Bagwell. Randy and Josh were friends. and they both had fond feelings for Heather. Carly told us that in Randy's mind, the relationship between Heather and Randy had been extremely serious. But that was not the case with Heather. Heather had actually broken off the relationship and then had taken up with Josh Bagwell. That type of situation is wrought with difficulties.
Either one of those two would have been easy choices for who she was talking to that night.
Being in love is a dangerous thing. You can't necessarily anticipate how you're going to react if you're spurned or if someone else steps into the love triangle.
All I knew is she had talked to somebody. She sneaks out the window, and you can't really assume anything after that.
Detectives focusing on the murder of cheerleader Heather Rich have their first two suspects: her new boyfriend, Josh Bagwell, and her ex-boyfriend, Randy Wood.
Randy Wood was an impressive-looking young man. Dark-haired, physically fit, looked like a typical high school football player. Randy was highly regarded in the community. He had even been elected homecoming king, so he was very popular on campus.
He lived with his grandma, who supported him. Randy didn't have a lot, as opposed to some of the others.
As football practice was closing, I sat down in the locker room with Randy. He recited what he recalled of his activity during the night when Heather came up missing. He said he was with Josh Bagwell. There was a trailer, a travel trailer. We learned that 3 guys were at that party: Randy Wood, Josh Bagwell, and Curtis Gamble. And they had been playing dominoes and drinking.
And then like 10:30 at night, Curtis and Josh and Randy had gone into a little town named Comanche, bought some food, and then came back, and they had just crashed at the camper. But they had not seen Heather. So the next thing we wanted to do was to talk to Josh and Curtis to see what their stories were.
They head to the home of Josh Bagwell, Heather's current boyfriend.
Josh lived with his grandparents. They were highly regarded, had been anchors of the community.
Investigators speak to Josh's grandmother, who owns the trailer.
She basically was telling us they had set up camp out in the travel trailer, playing dominoes. Perhaps they were drinking a little much, but they were not involved in any nefarious conduct, according to her.
What did Josh say? They're all drinking a little, we get some food. Very same story.
Their final stop is the third man at the trailer, Curtis Gamble.
Curtis Gamble was known around town as the rebel, the one who people liked to be around, but at the same time people feared.
He'd been through juvenile system before. Curtis tells us, I'm over at Josh's, haven't seen Heather. There wasn't really anything suspicious.
They pretty much corroborated what they were doing that night, and it didn't concern the death of Heather.
So now we're thinking, is there somebody else out there that we need to go talk to. Because somebody in this town knows something.
Investigators return to Heather's high school for new leads.
The professional staff at the school was very cooperative, from the principal superintendents all the way down.
The high school athletic director said that he had seen Heather in a pickup going down the street with former high school students.
But it was in the early morning hours after the disappearance, which obviously is big time as far as the timeline goes. He said he met a vehicle belonging to Jody Freeman and then a passenger, Eric Thompson, and claimed that in the vehicle with Jody and Eric was Heather Rich.
Detectives need to question the young men about the sighting. They start with the owner of the truck, Jody Freeman.
Jody admitted they was out riding around, messing around.
But Freeman denied the fact that Heather had been sitting beside him.
Jody claimed he really had no relationship at all with Heather, or just knew who she was. So we go to Eric Thompson. He said he knew Heather, but he also claimed that Heather hadn't been in that vehicle, that he had not seen Heather that morning.
With both men's stories matching up, the team must find another way to determine if they are on Heather's timeline. They speak to Eric's girlfriend.
She claimed he was home the actual night of Heather disappearing.
This means he could not have been the person who called her from the payphone the night she left the house.
She was able to place him at home at the appropriate times. You get a good feel of how comfortable people are on what they're telling you, how they're able to recount the events of that day. Their stories were consistent with one another's, and the other facts and circumstances that we could confirm completely led away from them. So we were able to eliminate them as suspects. The athletic director was able to identify, of course, the vehicle and the person that was driving it, and he was correct in identifying the other male passenger. He just misidentified Heather. These people are doing their best to find Heather, just like you are, so that's where you get the false sightings.
As investigators continue to canvass the town, a new name starts to come up with increased frequency.
And I learned from my conversations that there was a man by the name of Craig.
Craig had a reputation of being a rough and tumble person that was on the criminal side of the law. Craig was older, full-time employment, wasn't a high school student.
We knew he was furnishing marijuana and or methamphetamine to some of the school kids. And he had allegedly furnished marijuana or methamphetamine to Heather Ridge.
It was thought that there was some sort of narcotics transaction that he may have been involved with that Heather'd find out about.
Heather might have known something about that, and that's why she was killed.
So Craig is someone that's getting the finger pointed at him, and someone that we need to focus on.
Detectives searching for the killer of Heather Rich have identified a local drug dealer as a suspect in her murder.
Methamphetamine's a big problem. Where you know there's drugs involved, there's a very real possibility of a fatal consequence.
They bring Craig in for questioning.
Yes, he knew Heather. He knew her casually. They weren't in any sort of relationship together, didn't hang out together.
He did admit that he had provided her with alcohol, but he denied any knowledge, any involvement in any form or fashion with her death. Craig said that he hadn't seen Heather since a football game on September 20th, 2 weeks prior to her disappearance.
We focused on his timeline, where he was the night that Heather disappeared, what was his work schedule, who could alibi him. He is more than willing to provide his alibi corroboration.
Craig claims he was at home with his mother the night Heather disappeared and went straight to work the following day.
His accounts of his whereabouts and his activities leading up to the disappearance of Heather was corroborated through witnesses and through his work history.
There were some folks who believed Craig could have been involved because of his alleged drug dealing ways. But to me and to the other investigators, this was not a guy who would commit a murder.
Pursuing the drug angle further, investigators focus on Heather's peers.
The youth, the high school students, was a bit of a closed society. They were hesitant to talk to the police. There was an obvious mistrust of law enforcement.
Could be a number of reasons why that was. Number one, there was a little subculture in Warwick, Oklahoma, of narcotics.
One of the big reasons in small towns why kids get involved in drugs is absolutely, without question, boredom and lack of opportunity. People will wax nostalgic about small-town America, but part of the danger is getting wrapped up in the drugs, the alcohol, and that closed-minded behavior.
These kids were going, we don't care who you are, we're not talking to you. It was the most bizarre thing I'd ever seen. You know those kids talk, they're on the phone. Heather was on the phone constantly. You know those kids know something, but they're not talking.
Hoping to break the silence, detectives take a different approach.
The main reason why we had the tip line was just to get the information to the investigative teams as quickly as possible. It wasn't as if we had hundreds of tips, but we'd have 20 or 30 tips every day.
One of the leads quickly catches their attention.
A marina employee who was working at a sizable marina on Lake Murray in Oklahoma called us and reported that he had seen Heather on I-35, that they were traveling the same direction, and he saw her in a vehicle as they passed each other.
This was on October 2nd, within 12 hours of Heather's disappearance.
We drove to Lake Murray and met with this young man.
The marina employee, Tyler Datton, immediately sets investigators on edge.
And in our conversation with this man, he became obviously nervous and was providing information which to us as investigators seemed to be a bit deceptive. The way he started reacting to my questioning and how nervous he got, you know, my internal lie detection meter started skyrocketing. It's almost as if he was trying to insert himself into the investigation.
When a person is overly helpful, You have to take a step back and ask yourself, why? What are they hiding? Why are they giving me all this? Often that's a defensive mechanism. That's just to throw them off the scent mechanism as well.
The local marina employee said he had met Heather when Heather's family had opened up a business through the summer at the marina. There was some sort of acquaintanceship there. What that acquaintanceship is, I believe, was very casual from Heather's side and probably a little more of a fixation from the employee's side. Maybe he had envisioned some sort of relationship with the victim that was just a vision and not a reality, and had acted upon that fantasy.
We offered him the opportunity to take a polygraph. And basically the questions would be, do you know what happened to Heather Rich? Are you involved in the disappearance or death of Heather Rich? And he failed the polygraph. So we continued to think that there was some possibility he had knowledge that he didn't want to share it.
It didn't add up. And you start questioning as to the motives. This person had a connection to Heather that was not normal.
After failing his polygraph, detectives are sure that marina employee Tyler Datton is lying about his sighting of 16-year-old Heather Rich on the day she disappeared.
We asked for consent to search his pickup. We went through the pickup looking for fibers, anything at all that might give us evidence or indication there was evidence that Heather Rich had ever been in that pickup, or that any fibers from that pickup might have been on Heather's body. But we found no evidence there that would connect the Lake Murray witness to Heather.
When asked where he was the night she died, Tyler says he spent it at his father's house.
We weren't able to verify that that was accurate. He did not have the opportunity on the night of October 2nd to have made a phone call from a payphone. So we were able to say fairly definitively that this guy did not kill Heather Rich. This is one of those things that happens so often in a high-profile investigation, because you have people who want to be involved just so they can experience the excitement. And it's for us as investigators to be able to tell the difference. We were frustrated because we had gone through so many leads and we still didn't have anybody in jail. And there's this thought within law enforcement, if you don't have the bad guys captured within 48 hours, then the investigation may be going nowhere, that it may be classified as a cold case. My wife and I, we had a daughter at that time who was about the same age, bore some resemblance to Heather, and that daughter was a high school cheerleader as well. I could not help but think about my own children and the problems and the feelings that those parents may have had. And so, as investigators, we have got to provide those answers.
19 days after Heather's disappearance, investigators get a break.
The owner of the local hardware store called and said, just prior to Heather's disappearance, 2 young men had come in, and that those 2 young men had purchased 4 boxes of shotgun shells.
They had actually purchased Winchester double-aught buck, the same brand and type of shotgun shell that was used to cause Heather's death.
And they provided us with a receipt showing those 20 rounds of shotgun shells were purchased by Josh Bagwell. The owner said that there were 2 young men came in. We showed the photo array to the owner. She reviewed those and she immediately identified the second person as being Curtis Gamble.
So now we've got some pretty substantial leads that is pointing in a direction that we were initially pointed from the very beginning, which was this party that may have occurred at Josh's travel trailer.
The party took place during the window of time Heather is believed to have left her house.
We had 3 guys, Curtis Gamble, Josh Bagwell, Randy Wood, were at that party, only a few blocks away from Heather Rich's house.
And we've come to find out that Curtis did have a shotgun, and that apparently was pretty proud of it.
So we started looking at Curtis Gamble. We'd spoken with Curtis's grandmother, where Curtis was living at the time. She was concerned about a statement that Curtis had made to her. Curtis told his grandmother that he knew of someone who had been murdered.
The grandmother then reveals another damning fact.
Heather's body was found off the Belknap Creek Bridge. The grandmother knew that spot. She had been there before. She had taken Curtis there fishing as a child. So we're beginning to connect the dots in that he has a shotgun. He bought the shotgun shells. He knows where the murder scene is.
At this point, the investigation is closing in a particular area, and it's closing in very quickly.
So we decided to call Curtis in on the pretense of talking to him about the shotgun he bought.
I introduced myself to Curtis, and I started our interview. He denied any knowledge of Heather Rich's death. I asked him what kind of shotgun he had. It was one of the shotguns that we knew that could shoot 9 rounds without being reloaded.
They press him about the shells he purchased with Josh Bagwell.
Curtis had claimed that the shotgun shells that they had purchased, that he was just using that for sporting reasons, shooting frogs, target practice. He said he could take us to those shotgun shells, and he knew exactly where they were. We drive back down to the north side of the Red River at his direction, and he takes us to various locations where he thinks that those shotgun shells might have been ejected after he had used it for target practice. We found all kinds of shotgun shells, but we found no Winchester buckshot, none whatsoever. At that point, I believe he realized that we had so much evidence that he could probably never get out of it. We get back in the car, and I turned to Curtis and asked him, "Are you aware of what happened to Heather Rich?" Finally, he admitted that he knew what happened.
Detectives believe they have finally broken through to their lead suspect in the murder of Heather Rich, Curtis Gamble.
Curtis told a story that he hadn't told before.
Curtis says Heather did party with them that night at the trailer and claims her former boyfriend, Randy Wood, assaulted her.
Curtis said that Randy was concerned because he thought that Heather was going to charge him with her. So according to Curtis, it was Randy's idea to shoot and kill her.
But after the statement had been taken from Curtis, we arrested Randy Wood, along with Josh Bagwell.
Josh lawyered up. He didn't want to talk.
When detectives turn to Randy, he offers up a very different story.
Randy said it was Curtis who fired the 9 fatal shots, and that he basically sat in the pickup with his hands over his face, knowing what was about to happen.
When you have multiple suspects, you have to find a way to corroborate who might have had the firearm on the fateful evening. You're looking for evidence that one or the other is in fact the killer.
Determined to get to the truth, the team scours the records of both men and uncovers something damning in Curtis's juvenile report.
Curtis had said prior to this event that he had fantasized about raping and killing a girl.
It had been Curtis's dream all along to commit a murder such as this.
After what we know about him and the physical evidence that we've already gathered, we believed Curtis was the person responsible.
Using the reconstructed timeline, the team believes they have enough to prove that Curtis Gamble was the ringleader in the brutal slaying of 16-year-old Heather Rich.
Randy and Curtis and Josh were all over at Josh's camper.
They were playing dominoes. They were just having a good time. 2 hours later, the 3 of them get in the pickup, drive to a nearby town to get something to eat or to buy more whiskey. About an hour or so later, Heather received a phone call from Josh Bagwell, her boyfriend, from a payphone. She snuck out of the house. She walked a few blocks to the party that was being had at the trailer. Later on, she was alone in that trailer with Josh, while Randy and Curtis drove around up and down Main Street. And then when they came back about 2 hours later, she was intoxicated to the point that she had passed out. And in that intoxicated state, I believe that both Randy and Curtis either did or attempted to have forced relations with her. She remained passed out. They dressed her, put her in the back seat of that pickup. Curtis drove around the north side of the Red River to the Belknap Creek Bridge. And then he takes his shotgun and loads it up all the way and then he unloads that shotgun on Heather Rich. I want to believe that she never knew what happened when she was shot that 9 times and her body dumped into the creek.
I firmly believe it was Curtis Gamble, but the other 2 willingly participated into taking her from that travel trailer, putting her in the back of that pickup, and driving her to Texas where they put her out on the bridge. And they all knew what Curtis was going to do and allowed it to occur.
On October 25th, 1996, Curtis Gamble, Randy Wood, and Josh Bagwell are all charged with Heather's murder.
Josh Bagwell never confessed. He denied to the very, very end. He never felt badly about participating in the murder. He provided the shotgun shells, he provided the alcohol, he provided the pickup, he provided the means to commit the murder. Curtis Gamble is the absolute epitome of evil. Gamble was the murderer. Josh Bagwell was his assistant. If there's anyone in the group who has any mitigating qualities, it would be Randy Wood. He lamented the fact that he was involved. Randy Wood was just there and didn't have the courage to stop it.
After lengthy trials, all 3 are found guilty and sentenced to life.
For you to take this girl's life and affect their parents, affect their family, affect their community, affect your own future, affect your own life, that's beyond me. I don't understand. What I have peace over is these 3 won't be killing again.
Our job is to seek justice in every avenue, but there really is no justice in the death of a child.
I don't know how you close a wound that's been so devastatingly opened. But her mother and father at least have some understanding of what happened to their child, and then those who caused those deadly wounds are paying the price.